Ross Greenwood, Peter Dutton was at the top of the show. I mean, he says there's economic 101. If you put all of this money out there into the economy, people will spend. And if people spend, that's inflationary. The Treasurer says, no, that's absolutely wrong. But when you consider federal spending is going to hit 27% of GDP in the next financial year, how is that not inflationary? And there's this concession anyway in the budget papers that there will be no rate cut now. It was forecast for this year, but the government's own papers say we will not see a cut in interest rates until next year at the earliest.
Well, Peter, I think you find two things in this budget. One is that they're trying to buy votes through the cash splash, which is inflationary, as you point out. And I think they're trying to buy themselves a rate cut this year before things start to really deteriorate under this government next year. In that circumstance, we know that the Reserve Bank and all of the credible economists who have made comment overnight panning this budget, I'd frankly take their word over the word of Jim Chalmers and Anthony Albanese, because it is inflationary, and it is always the case under a Labor government that they tax and spend, and that results in higher interest rates. And interest rates will always be higher under a Labor government. History's demonstrated that, and unfortunately the lessons of history haven't been learnt by this government.
For all that talk about dropping migration too, I mean, if you look at the budget detail, they've had to revise up the current year's forecast, but we're still going to have 1.6 million new migrants arriving here at the same time as we're in the middle of a housing crisis. I mean, that's the reality in the budget. What's the government say to that?
Well, they keep saying that they're going to reduce the number of migrants coming into the country, but the trouble is when you get the actual figures, they always increase. So you're right, 1.67 million people over 5 years. That's bigger than the population of Adelaide. And we know that over the last couple of years, it's about 900,000 people who have come in through the migration program, and we've only built about 265,000 homes as a country. So if you ask yourself, why is there a housing crisis, why is there a rental crisis in this country? It's because of the decisions of the Albanese government. No Labor government, no Liberal government in our history has had those sorts of numbers. And it's not just housing, Peter. I mean, people know when you move into a new area, you try and enrol your kids in the local kindergarten or enrol your kids in the local school, try and get a new GP, turn up for elective surgery or to an emergency department. Everything is just chock-a-block. You jump in your car and drive to work or run the kids to school in the morning. The roads are gridlocked, and it's because there hasn't been proper planning, and it's because this government really has brought in people at a record number. We're a great country because of migration, but it needs to be properly managed, and the government hasn't done that.
Now, I'm not stupid enough to think, having been in an opposition leader's office, that you're going to announce policy changes or detail tonight ahead of your big speech tomorrow night. But Andrew Clennell says there's a rumour that you might have a housing announcement in the mix tomorrow night. Could you at least confirm that?
Well, I think housing is one of the biggest issues facing our country at the moment. I think the energy crisis that Labor's creating, the housing crisis that Labor's created, and the security crisis that Labor's created, I think they are three priorities for our country, and you can expect that I'll have a lot to say on those issues. I think people feel less safe in our country. There are 3 boat arrivals last week, so our borders aren't as secure as they used to be. We see that the government's released 152 criminals from immigration detention. Some of them have committed egregious attacks and crimes against Australians already. We know that this government's delivered 12 interest rate rises. Inflation here is a bigger problem than what it is in most other comparable nations. And we know that in terms of the Australian-made policy that the government's got, the only thing that you get Australian-made under a Labor government is inflation. And Australian families at the moment are $35,000 worse off under Mr Albanese. And I think the housing crisis that they've created means that we've got people living in tents and in cars at the moment. Homelessness is at a record level because of the government's migration program. And I just don't think it's fair. And at the same time, they're handing out billions of dollars to businesses that frankly should be able to thrive in an environment where there is massive demand for critical minerals the world over.
We'll leave it there, Peter Dutton. Good luck for tomorrow night. We'll be watching it here on Sky News at 7:30, of course. We'll see you then.